Welcome to the Walt Whitman Show. Welcome to Ireland. And welcome to a hotel room in Cong in the west of Ireland, close to the border between County Galway and County Mayo. So it's the Walt Whitman Show, special edition. This is Walt Whitman, the poet. Good evening, Andrew. Good evening. Very nice to see you. Jan Phil, hello. I can't read so very well. Excuse me. I'm trying to hold. Anne, hello. How do you do? This is, I suppose you could call this the mid-morning or a late, very late evening edition, because for us in Ireland it's pretty late or early, depending upon which way you count the time. So I couldn't resist having a Walt Whitman show, even though other people said, oh, you really ought to go to bed. So look, for those of you who have never been to the Walt Whitman show, you are especially welcome. This is the American poet, Walt Whitman, who lived from 1819, when he was born on Long Island, New York, and died in Camden, New Jersey in 1892. So he spans a huge chunk of the 19th century. And the Walt Whitman show happens every day, and the idea is to read the whole of Walt Whitman's verse on Periscope. You've been to his birthplace many times. Oh, wow. Well, I would love to go to see his birthplace. I'd love to go and see all the places he lived. I haven't been there. So this is the project. The project is to, on Periscope, read to you and to others Walt Whitman. He went to Walt Whitman HS House. Ah, right. What first drew me to Walt Whitman? Well, it's a funny thing. The short version of it is that I picked up a collection of selected poems from Walt Whitman, not having a clue who Walt Whitman was. And I started reading the introduction to it. And the introduction of the selected poems by Walt Whitman included the phrase wilderness of unopened life. So the wilderness of unopened life, that just thinking about that really, it's a bit like, whetted my appetite. I didn't really know what it meant, but it just really felt like a very positive thing. And I started to read Whitman, and the wilderness of unopened life, yeah. It was a great phrase. It had a big influence on me. Now, I kind of feel I was ready to be attracted to Whitman. That being attracted to Walt Whitman and his poetry really didn't come out of the blue. It didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened to a guy who was beginning to get interested in poetry and who was kind of ripe for having a hero, a poetic hero. So I think I was then pretty surprised with the kind of poetry that I discovered Walt Whitman wrote. He was totally unlike any other poet who I'd come across. And I found him very liberating. Were you writing pre or post Walt? Oh, I was born a long time before Walt Whitman. Yes, I was born a very long time before Walt. No, let me say hello to you properly. Hello. Welcome. I'm sitting in a hotel room. The Walt Whitman show is, this is a very special edition. It's usually done in my kitchen in Cork, where I live. So I'm up in the west of Ireland at a conference Oh, writing poetry. I began to write poetry after I started to read Walt Whitman. Yeah, a short while after I started to read Walt Whitman, I began to write. Yeah, Whitman came before my writing. So I use the 1891 edition. This is the deathbed edition, the last one. For those of you who don't know, that's a very good question, because Walt Whitman produced, I think it's 9 editions of Leaves of Grass during, well, 9 editions. There are 9 editions. The first edition of Leaves of Grass was published in 1855, self-published. Second edition, 1856. But basically, think about it as this guy produces poems, nobody buys them, produces another edition. Anyway, without going through the whole story, just before he died, he prepared a final edition, and that's why this is called the deathbed edition. So that's the one. What's important about this is that he edited his poetry as he went along. You're from Huntington, New York, like Whitman. Oh, wow, you went to Walt Whitman High School. Oh, it's really nice to meet you. I'm thrilled that this Walt Whitman show this evening will be saved on Catch, so I'll be able to look back at who you are, who said that, because to be truthful, I didn't notice your name. But it's absolutely wonderful to have. Yes, Whitman continually edited. Was he eventually happy? Look, he edited his poetry throughout his life, and I'm not able to tell you whether he was happy or not about it, except that it isn't unusual for poets to do different versions of the same poem. But in Whitman's case, he did more than that. He actually rearranged the order in which the poems would be presented. All of his work goes under the title of Leaves of Grass. Right, upon death he was happy. Okay. I'm not an academic. I'm the least academic. In relation to English literature, I'm totally unacademic. I am somebody who loves the poetry of Walt Whitman, and I'm actually going to read it to you. So just in case you're beginning to suspect that you know this guy's never going to read us some poetry, my plan is to read you Walt Whitman in a minute. So, oh, Andrew, you're much too kind. You're much too kind. No, but look, in all seriousness, Periscope is an ideal way of people sharing things that they love, things that they're interested in. And I saw all these people who were terrific playing music, terrific at drawing and painting. I saw them attracting and attracting lots of people. I saw them doing wonderful things, and I thought, well, what could I do? And I thought, well, I could read the poetry of my favorite poet. So that's what I set out at the beginning and started doing Periscope, I suppose you would say. Well, I mean, doing a show every single day. So the Walt Whitman show happens every day, and we've reached the beginning of a new poem. I wish I could tell you something about this poem, but I haven't been able to do any research on the background to this poem. So each of the 7 parts of this poem appeared sporadically in earlier versions of Leaves of Grass. Yeah. Becky, hello. I'm delighted we've met. I'm delighted. Now, I don't usually do it while lying on a bed in a hotel room, right? I just want to stress that. I'm going to read to you. I'm trying to figure out a way I can prop the camera. Look, I can do it here. That's easy. So look, if you're ready for some Walt Whitman, I'm going to read you now from a collection of poems which go collectively as Birds of Passage, and the first one is called Song of the Universal. And I'm not going to read you all of it. Thank you very much for sharing. Very pleased, very delighted, very honoured that you would do that. Because, so I'm going to read you Song of the Universal by Walt Whitman and see what you think about it. This piece, this is a poem for the commencement of Tufts College in 1874. Thank you very much, Andrew. We make a good team, I think. That's very good. So, 1874, not long after he went to live in Camden, New Jersey. And here's the poem, Song of the Universal. Come, said the muse, sing me a song no poet yet has chanted. Sing me the universal. In this broad earth of ours, amid the measureless grossness and the slag, enclosed and safe within its central heart, nestles the seed perfection. By every life a share or more or less, none born, but it is born, concealed or unconcealed, the seed is waiting. Part 2. Lo, keen-eyed, towering science, as from tall peaks the modern overlooking, successive absolute flats issuing, yet again, lo, the soul above all science, for it has history gathered like husks around the globe. For it the entire star myriads roll through the sky, in spiral routes by long detours, as a much tacking ship upon us the sea. For it the partial to the permanent flowing, for it the real to the ideal trend tends, for it the mystic evolution, not the right only justified, what we call evil also justified. Forth from their masks, no matter what, from the huge festering trunk, from craft and guile and tears, health to emerge and joy, joy universal. Out of the bulk, the morbid and the shallow, out of the bad majority, the varied countless frauds of men and states, electric, antiseptic, yet cleaving, suffusing all, only the good is universal. I'll stop there. First piece of it. They're the first two parts of the poem Song of the Universal. Out of the bulk, the morbid and the shallow. Teen Carrie, I'm very pleased you like it. I'm going to read it again. I think it's not the easiest thing to get into, but let's see how it goes. Let me read it again to you and see what it's like. Song of the Universal. Come, said the muse, sing me a song no poet yet has chanted. Sing me the universal. In this broad earth of ours, amid the measureless grossness and the slag, enclosed and safe within its central heart, nestles the seed perfection. By every life a share or more or less, none born but it is born, concealed or unconcealed, the seed is waiting. Part 2. Lo, keen-eyed towering science, as from tall peaks the modern overlooking, successive absolute fiats issuing, yet again, lo, the soul above all science, for it has history gathered like husks around the globe, for it the entire star myriads roll through the sky, in spiral routes by long detours, as a much tacking ship upon the sea. For it the partial to the permanent flowing, for it the real to the ideal tends, for it the mystic evolution, not the right only justified, what we call evil also justified. Forth from their masks, no matter what, from the huge festering trunk, from craft and guile and tears, health to emerge and joy, joy universal. Out of the bulk, the morbid and the shallow, out of the bad majority, the varied countless frauds of men and states, electric, antiseptic yet, cleaving, suffusing all, only the good is universal. So that is Walt Whitman's beginning of his poem, Song of the Universal, 1874. After the American Civil War, after Whitman was ill and had to go and live in Camden, New Jersey. It's done for the opening of a college, Tufts College, I think Andrew said it was. Come, said the muse, after his stroke and the death of his mother in 1873. Only the good is universal. Only the good is universal. Love the fresh optimism. Yeah, he was definitely an optimist. Walt Whitman is perhaps, you wouldn't find a poet who is more optimistic than Whitman. Most poets I think of have poetry about depression. So hang on a second, this is interesting. The footnotes cite Walt's influence of reading Hegel. Right, well this must be about thesis, antithesis and synthesis, I'm imagining, about evolution and about the way things change, move from one state to another. I wonder if, I presume that Hegel was translated. Mark Fraz is here. Mark, hello. Welcome from Chicago. Thank you very much for coming. Welcome to a small little hotel room in the west of Ireland. There is interesting phrasing in the piece. Notice that. Well, to be truthful, Andrew, I'm so tired. I am so tired. I think I'm going to have to read it again in the morning after I've had sleep. Because I'm reading poetry, which I love doing. But I'm actually so tired. It's hard to get the full feel of it. It's a long day. I've been up way too long. And I just wanted to have the Walt Whitman show this evening because I like to do it every single day. But my brain, in terms of my heart is still alive, My brain is kind of seized up. Out of the bulk, the morbid and the shallow, out of the bad majority, thank you, Anne, the varied countless frauds of men and states. I just love that line. The varied countless frauds of men and states. Electric, antiseptic yet cleaving, suffusing all. Only the good is universal. Yeah. The varied countless frauds of men and states appeals to me. So, I'm not going to read you any more Whitman tonight. This is a short scope. I don't want to pretend I have any more energy than I have. So I am going to just be here with you for a minute or two more. And I want to thank you all for coming to the Walt Whitman Show. Some of you won't have been here before at all, and can I say that it's not only does it normally take place a couple of hours before this, but it's I have more energy on other occasions and I read more poetry and I feel kind of capable of more communication. Indefatigable. I think I do feel, Andrew, that I really, really intend for us to have the Walt Whitman Show every day, even if sometimes it's quite short, knowing that other times it's quite long. And no, I have come to the west of Ireland without my daughter's cat. Oh, Tempa, that you like the scope with my daughter, right? Yes, sometimes it's handy when your daughter's cat walks across the screen and creates a diversion. It certainly lightens the mood, because poetry can be, a bit heavy sometimes. We met some great people today. I'm glad you liked it. I really am. I do hope it was of some interest and value, and they were really the people. Today I did some periscoping yesterday in Ireland, but yes. And the people I was with had never seen something live streamed on Periscope. I have every intention of doing some live streaming tomorrow of landscape, and there's some beautiful countryside around here, and I'm hoping that there will be enough of a signal to do it. But there was the people I was at a small conference with today were very, very interested in how Periscope worked, and were quite very much surprised at how people from the other side of the world could possibly be in communication with us in Ireland, in the small village I'm in. Now, if you just arrived and you're wondering, what is this guy doing talking when he should be reading the poetry of Walt Whitman, can I just say that I've read some Walt Whitman already, and I'm not going to read any more this evening because I'm exhausted, and I'm going to, in a couple of minutes, I'm going to wish you all the very best. It went incredibly well, I think, in terms of what I was hoping, Andrew, to the effect of it on people. Schlaf gut, ja, Danke sehr. Danke sehr. Thank you, Anne. Thank you. I will sleep, and I won't sleep enough, but I'll sleep. Yeah. So yeah, it's look, I don't want to labor it. I'm going to say goodnight to you all. I'm going to say cheerio. The Walt Whitman show will return with more readings of Walt Whitman, with more readings from Walt Whitman tomorrow. Would I ever consider? I would consider reading Emily Dickinson, but after Walt Whitman, I want to. The project is to begin to read all of Walt Whitman's poetry, and I don't want to dilute that project by. I love Emily Dickinson. You know, would have read lots of Emily Dickinson, and there's an awful lot I haven't read, but she's an astonishing poet. But I'm gonna persist with it's sleep in a minute. It really is sleep, and some of the others are still in the pub, probably making music, but I've run out of all energy, so I'm going to retire, and I'm going to thank you all very much. It's great of you to come for the Walt Whitman show. There are thank you, Andrew. There are archived readings of Whitman and other poets. Yes, I have read other poets as well, but the biggest single piece of work is to read Whitman. So look, I want to thank you all very much. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for just giving us your company, and I look forward to having more and more contact with you in future, and all the very best for now. You're very welcome, Andrew. It's a pleasure to do it. Thank you, Tempa. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jace. J. Cott. I have to go, I'm afraid, but the scope will be saved. So bye-bye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.